So hello everyone, good afternoon. Hi. Thank you for coming to this panel, and I would like to thank Africana Studies for agreeing to have this afternoon panel, and Jose for all your help. Thank you along the way. So the title of this panel this afternoon is Blackness in Old World Contexts, the case of Ghana and France. So I had in mind posing a question, and then I would cite from Jemima Pierre's work that we've all been engaging with today. And then I will show a small clip from the 2016 film co-directed by Dr. Mame Fatou-Niang. She's an associate professor at Carnegie Mellon University in French and Francophone Studies. And I would also like to thank Dr. Niang for coming today. We projected the whole film yesterday and we had a great conversation, and I just wanted to take that opportunity to put the two scholars' works in conversation. Okay? So my first question is, how do scholars study Blackness outside predominant constructions contingent upon the history of the slaveholding Americas, the New World? And so I feel as if that Pierre was getting at this question in the 7th chapter of The Predicament of Blackness. In this chapter, she quotes, and now I'm going to stumble a bit, but Kwaku Larbi Koang argument, and I'm going to loosely quote Pierre here, and then I'll fully quote Pierre's words. But here's the quote that I have in mind, and what's guiding these thoughts for me. The hybridity that constitutes contemporary Black experience, and I use contemporary, in the book it's modern, but as a literary scholar, modern is a loaded term. It doesn't mean contemporary, it doesn't mean the now in any way. Yes, so the hybridity that constitutes Black experience is not the property of only the diasporic branch of the Atlantic. They are indeed the fact of Blackness produced by Western imperialism. And so for me, this diasporic branch of the Atlantic, I would like to widen it up and consider Europe as one of those branches of the what we call diaspora, but yet it's complicated. So here I'm fully quoting Pierre, because once she develops Koang's argument, she extends his argument by saying, I would further argue that it is only by denying the interlinked histories of the transatlantic slave trade and colonialism in Africa and the New World that scholars can both keep Africa in a distant past and deny Africa its place in the contemporary community of Blackness. And what's interesting in this chapter is that Pierre cites Paul Gilroy's The Black Atlantic and Stuart Hall work, several of the articles from Stuart Hall, as a way of constructing hybridity and an essentialist sort of viewpoint of Africa, Africa being a bit stagnant. For me, Paul Gilroy and Stuart Hall are important here because they are also based in Europe, in the UK. And what's interesting for Gilroy, that he's trying to contemplate, and in this way of thinking of hybridity, being both Black and European, as a special double consciousness, and leaving kind of Africa behind in this sort of origin point. But still, that Europe that Hall and Gilroy is contemplating and thinking about is also the Europe that I'm interested in, and thinking about Europe as also an old world context, or how do we really look at one side of the Atlantic and see how Blackness is or isn't being articulated. So I will just continue a little more. So Dr. Mame Fatou-Niang and Dr. Jemima Pierre Scholarship investigate processes of deracialization in nations situated in the Old World. These sites conjures histories indispensable to the study of Africa and the African diaspora. The Negritude movement in the first Congress of Black writers and artists emerged in interwar and post-World War II France. Not long thereafter, Ghana became the first politicized Black republic in continental Africa and thereby attracted Pan-Africanists on the continent and throughout the Atlantic world. I also pause here because I also think about Sudan and where its place in the continent, because it gained independence just before Ghana, but wasn't politicized as a Black republic. So Africa's very fascinating that way. In recent years, however, cultural and political initiatives obscure these sites' century-long engagement with Blackness. And here, let me just quote Pierre again, the fact of Blackness produced by Western imperialism. So examples in Ghana and in France include government-sponsored heritage tours that frame Blackness as outside local Ghanaian culture. And in the French context, you have the French republicanism that espoused color blindness, and we'll see that it's color blindness racism later. In this light, the timely work of Dr. Niang and Dr. Pierre offer contemporary studies on Black identity formation in respectively France and Ghana, sites that are concomitantly experiencing processes of deracialization aimed to obstruct, erase, muffle iterations of Blackness. And here I will turn to the film, and then I'll pose 2 questions to you, Doctor.